Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala about to be confirmed first female DG of World Trade Organization. Cryptocurrency SEC CBN to work on digital assets regulation. Nigeria Stock Exchange platform to fund 41.5 million SMEs debuts. Oil marketers demand timely completion of new refineries, plus the biggest move to bridge infrastructure deficit in Nigeria, the Infraco, is the focus of our discussion on the program today. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar. Now let's begin with Mines and Steel. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekan Adegbite, has expressed the willingness of the federal government to support mining firms in a bid to grow the economy and create jobs for Nigerians. The minister, who made this known during a facility tour of a gold project in Osun State, said the government through the ministry has provided a number of incentives to businesses and investors to spur growth in the sector. Some of the incentives include waiver on customs and import duties for plants, machinery and equipment imported for mining operations, tax holidays of between 3 and 5 years for businesses. Others are free transferability of funds and permission to retain and use earned foreign exchange, capital allowances of up to 95% of qualifying capital expenditure, deductibility of environmental costs, and 100% ownership of mineral properties. The company had created 500 direct jobs and 1,100 indirect jobs. Now, Kenya has overtaken Nigeria as the most attractive destination on the continent for startups venture for capital investment deals in 2020, despite the COVID-19 pandemic. A recent venture capital data compilation by Startup List Africa, a data-driven platform that focuses on African startups, shows that Kenya accounted for 25% of the total startup investment in Africa in 2020, while Nigeria, Africa's biggest economy, accounted for 23% of the total. Kenya topped the list of venture capital investment deals with a total of $266 million, followed by Nigeria with $237 million investments for the period. South Africa, Africa's most industrialized economy, came in third with $198 million investment deals, followed by Egypt and Ghana with $125 million and $90 million. Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt remain emphatically Africa's biggest four from a funding perspective, accounting for 77% of funded startups and 89.2% of total investment during the period. The federal government has approved the establishment of an infrastructure company, Infraco. The company is expected to facilitate the development of critical infrastructure across the country. This move, experts believe, will help bridge the nation's infrastructure deficit and provide a firm core for increasing national economic productivity and infrastructural growth. While we await the takeoff of this company, there is need to understand what this means for the Nigerian economy, as attempts to stay out of likely economic contraction is ongoing. To do just that, I have with me a development economist, Niyi Akin Siju. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Okay, $3 trillion across 30 years is needed to close this. What do you make of Infraco?
Yeah, well, I think one should first commend the initiative. It's a very, very courageous, visionary initiative, because for a long time there had been this advocacy for PPP, that's private-public partnership in providing infrastructure, to which we all know how deficient, deficit we are. So this, I think, is a very brave, courageous move to bridge that gap. It is not just about breaching, but to my mind, it's about bridging with cost effectiveness and, of course, with efficiency. Because when you involve the private sector in such venture, what it does is to bring in efficiency, in the whole process. And from the structure we have seen, there is a more tendency, for independence of action. It is not going to be a government-led initiative. It's going to be a private sector-led initiative, with the seed money coming from the African Finance Corporation, the CBN, and of course the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. It tells us that the efficiency quantum or spectrum of the infraco is guaranteed. I think more than that, we are talking of a 15 trillion quantum of fund in the economy.
The 15 trillion, the seed capital is 1 trillion.
Yes, no, it's not. It's actually, it's not about the seed.
It's expected to
yes,
grow.
Because the seed is what the seed translates to is that the government is giving it the backing of the might of the federal government, and of course that extends to the credibility of the Nigerian government. This is what investors, would see. It's just like the FGM bond, for instance. Investors buy into the FGM bond because of the credibility and the might of the federal government. So this is what the federal government is imputing into the infraco. So the seed money is a show of confidence, that the federal government is involved in this. But at the same time, is not going to be involved with the daily operation, This will create a linkage between the public sector, as represented by the federal government, and the private sector. So the build-up, you expect that bonds would be floated, and of course, from as it also goes, a number of concerns across the world would also buy equity in the company. So for me, it's a watertight idea.
How far do you think it will go?
It has taken off with that 1 trillion seed. It has taken off. The next thing will be, how would you build investors, confidence across the world, that in the next 6 months, for instance, we can actually realize that 14 trillion, and I believe it's realizable. One, we have a debt market now, that carries a burden of low yield. And of course, investors are also looking for diversified space where they can invest more. So this is also providing an opportunity for investment, and I believe that the yield on the bonds that will be issued by this company are likely to also be impressive and attractive enough. So the sustainability of it, I think there's no contention about it.
Okay, there's this expected loan of $5.3 billion to commence construction of Kano to Ibadan rail, among other projects. With Infraco coming on board, will such projects continue, or will Infraco take over?
No, there are still so much projects, to realize. So you still have the Lagos Calabar rail line, railway, standard gauge railway. You still have the Port Harcourt Maiduguri narrow railway. You still have about 6 seaports, deep seaports that needs to be invested in and realized. You have roads of more than 15,000 kilometers belonging to the federal government. You have increased capacity. They need to increase the electric distribution and, of course, delivery capacity, generating capacity of power. So there are so many areas that needs income, that needs investment. So with what we have now, what has been the major challenge of the Nigerian economy is shortage, deficit in revenue. And because of that, we have not been able to realize, to invest more or less in the needs, in the infrastructural needs of the country. In 2021, we have done much as we improved on the threshold of our capital expenditure. It's just 4.1 trillion naira. We are not even sure we'll be able to generate up to that to invest in capital, in our capital projects. But if you have 15 trillion to play with, at the level of the private sector, the PPP we are talking about in the Infraco company, you have what would hugely supplement whatever the federal government is doing in the area of investing in capital projects. So the federal government will still be doing their own, the state government will still be doing their own, and now of course you have the private sector also doing its own.
Okay, let's look at management. What would you suggest should be the structure, more so that pension funds are involved?
Yeah, we have seen the framework. The board is chaired by the CBN. You also have the NSIA, that's the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, being members of the board. The AFC, the African Finance Corporation, is also a member of the board. You have representative of the Governors Forum, who would also be members of the board. And I think essentially it's the board that will form the management team, and it's strictly not going to be political. It's not an appointment that will come from the presidency this time. It's the board that will form what I call an efficient, focused management team. So there will be I can't see any connection between the management and the political arm of government. You have a connection between the management and the board that is also framed up like a private sector structure, as it were. So going forward, if you have independence of decision making at the level of the board and the management that are not directly beholden to the political arm of government, we expect efficiency in both allocation of resources and, of course, transparency in the process of executing and implementing the mandates of the Infraco.
Okay, what financial strategies do you see the company leveraging on?
Yeah, I observed earlier. We have the seed money. I expect that bonds will be floated, I expect that equity may be sold, to interested organizations. But most likely, we'll be seeing more of bonds, and that will help the Nigerian debt market a lot. It will help the Nigerian debt market. It will also help drive in a speedy manner the way funds are made available to realize infrastructural projects across the country. And most importantly, when you have this kind of fund to play with, and I'm using the play, in a constricted manner, if you have this kind of fund, to invest, what it translates to is a robust economy. One, it will impact our GDP. It will impact employment. Because for all these projects that will also be realized, there will be employment opportunities that will be created. And of course, it will also impact the backward integration, because most of these projects that will be realized would also have need, for raw materials from the domestic economy, as it were. So it's actually a huge multiplier project that I am envisioning, as it were.
Are we likely to see any impact in the power sector?
Yeah, we should, because even now the NSIA is interested in the power sector. The CBN had been lending money to the power sector. The AFC too had been lending funds to the power sector. So the power sector, I think, will be a major attraction point, for investments.
Okay, with policy inconsistencies over the years, do you see this lofty initiative surviving beyond this administration?
Well, once it has taken off, once you have buyers into it, once bond had been sold, once equity had been sold, it will naturally have a life of its own. It will be near sovereign harakiri, so to say, for any government to come in and, of course, make a reversal on that. I don't think that is possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ni Akin-Siju, development economist.
A pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oil prices soared on Monday to their highest in about 13 months as vaccine rollouts promised to revive demand and producers kept supply reined in. Brent crude was up 92 cents to $63.35 a barrel after climbing to a session high of $63.76, the highest since January 22nd, 2020. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained $1.20 to $60.67 a barrel. Let's take a trip to the commodity markets. To address the funding challenges facing about 41.5 million micro, small and medium enterprises in the country, the Nigerian Stock Exchange remodeled its alternative securities market to become the Growth Board. The Growth Board provides issuers, especially small and medium enterprises, with opportunities to leverage on the exchange for listing, raising long-term capital and facilitating liquidity in trading of their shares. With a total of 41.5 million SMEs in the country, experts say capital markets are a clear alternative to bank lending, and SMEs funding could be sourced from the capital markets. Giving credence to the launch of the Growth Board, they implored listing of growth companies and provide them with a cost-effective platform to raise the capital needed to scale, attract investors, enhance corporate visibility, and put in place a regulatory structure that fosters growth. The Growth Board is established as part of NSE's initiative to elevate Nigerian capital market and meet the needs of businesses at every phase of their life cycle. Up until 2015, NSE maintained two boards, the main board and alternative securities markets. Nigeria's creative and entertainment industry is set for a rebirth as the federal government signs a memorandum of understanding with the Bankers Committee for the Restoration of the National Arts Theatre, Lagos. The agreement for the private sector funded 21 billion naira project is facilitated by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Adeni Tayo reports.
To the African culture, the imposing National Art Theatre Igomu Lagos has in the last 2 decades gone moribund, failing to provide the needed support for the nation's fast-growing creative industry. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has been working with the Central Bank of Nigeria to save the national asset by partnering the private sector. He is excited on this particular occasion as he signs a series of agreements with the Bankers Committee to restore the facility.
As part of the restoration of the National Theatre, there will be the development of a purpose-built cluster to provide world-class facilities for the Nigerian creative industry.
It is going to be a 21st century building. It is going to be a building that will breathe in IT, in everything, such that when we are holding international conferences, IMF World Bank meetings, it will be beamed in different parts of the world without any interference. That is what we are trying to develop here.
We are also working to support the creation of the Lagos Creative and Entertainment City, which will provide employment to millions and millions of youth.
With a projected capacity to generate about 35,000 jobs during and after construction, the project will help in addressing some of the concerns of Nigerian youths.
For me, it's not only the national theatre that I see. I see a transportation solution that has been solved. But more importantly, I see urban regeneration. The president has fully supported this project.
Contracts for the project were also awarded during the ceremony. With a timeline of 15 months to complete the project, work is expected to start very soon, and Nigerians can look forward to a new national theatre.
Okay, let's take a look at how the Nigerian Stock Exchange has fared today. Well, it seems to be a gain. As you can see, the all-share index gained by 0.33% during a trading of 206 million shares valued at 2.1 billion naira, which exchanged hands in 4,264 deals. The market capitalization stands at 21.2 trillion naira. Now let's take a look at the global market. Japan's Nikkei crosses 30,000 for the first time in more than 3 decades. Asia Pacific stocks rise. Ineka reports.
African indices started the week on a positive territory. South African JSE Top 40 climbed 0.95% at 61,252.86. Kenya's Nairobi All Share 0.94%. Ghana GSE Composite 2.24%, Tunisia's Tunidex 0.55%, and Namibia's overall 0.68 points. Stocks in Asia Pacific rose on Monday with multiple markets in North Asia closed for Lunar New Year holidays. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 surged past the 30,000 level for the first time in more than 30 years, according to data from Refinitiv. It rose 1.91% on Monday to 30,084.15, while Shanghai Composite and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index finished in positive territory. European stocks received a positive handover from Asia Pacific, with the FTSE, DAX and CAC 40 starting the week on the positive. US stocks finished marginally higher on Friday to set another round of record closes. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 27.7 points, or 0.1%, for a new all-time high. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite both rose 0.5%. Neka Oko, Business Express.
Now, this is where we end this episode of the program. Don't forget, you can access this and all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback. Do join us again on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. for another package. I am Musa Abubakar saying stay safe.